previously on the Outside of Sunday podcast.
I didn't grow up in a Christian family. No one knew at the time, like not even my parents. I had struggled with self-harm a lot at that time. I'd had some scars. They were on fire. I was like burning. I looked down and they were gone.
Hey, you're listening to the Outside of Sunday podcast. I'm Krista, and here you'll find genuine conversations and inspiring testimonies, as well as biblical encouragement on how to live your faith in and outside of Sunday. So tell us a little bit about that COVID time, because I know that there was something that happened there that affected you.
Both my husband and I actually had adverse reactions to our first vaccine, our first and only vaccine.
When did you first notice that something was up?
So I first noticed when I was in there because we...
Like immediately?
Yeah,
Wow.
immediately. So we were both like not really wanting to get it. And like obviously everyone has different views about the vaccines.
Yeah.
But just the mandates were like, it was a really rough time.
Even if you were someone who was pro-vaccine and getting them, it was still like there was so much pressure and so much division. And I'm the same. I didn't want to get the vaccine. But I was like, well, I'm not super anti and I'm not super for. So, because the whole pitch that they were saying was we just need this number of Kiwis to get vaccinated and then everybody is protected.
Shots for summer.
yeah, all of that. And it was basically the angle was, get vaccinated for the, so that we can all get out of these lockdowns.
Yeah.
And so I was like, fine, I'm not someone who's super anti-vax, so I'll just do it.
Yeah.
I didn't want to, and then I only did that first lot, and then I was like, I'm not doing it again. I just kind of was jaded after that. Yeah. Plus, I was just like not keen. And anyway, but I did it. I was just like, oh, I'll just do it. Who cares?
Yeah, that's a lot of people that we know, they did. And even some that are pro-vaccine, they absolutely hated and disagreed with the mandates.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Yeah. But so we got that because I was living on campus at the time, but I wasn't allowed in class.
So you weren't allowed in class because you hadn't got the vaccine. Is that what you're saying?
We both got one, and we asked if it was okay to get another, and we both had like exemptions saying that like they would likely die if they got another one, so they shouldn't. Like it's our medical opinion.
Okay. So you had already had one. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So we got the first one, and that's the one that made us sick. And we never got any after that.
So you had an exemption after that, but you still weren't allowed in class?
No, a medical exemption from the doctors, not from Ashley Bloomfield.
Okay.
So, it wasn't like a government recognised one, but it was one.
From the doctors?
Yeah, from like doctors saying they should not get one. But you take that and attach it to your application to get like a government exemption. But we were both denied.
Okay, so if you wanted to continue your studies and be in the classroom, you had to have another round. I just want to clarify something because I think I got confused before. So, because the first vaccine was administered in 2 shots, eh? That's what it was. Yeah. Because I was like confused. How did I get a passport when you had 1 shot and I had a shot, but I actually had 2 shots?
You got 2, yeah.
I forgot.
So you get 2 to get the passport?
Yeah, it was 2 shots to get the passport. Yeah. So you had the first shot, and that's when you had the adverse reaction. So you didn't get the second, whereas that's why I got it, because I did the first 2. Yeah. And then I was like, I'm not doing any more, guys. Yeah. I was like, I've done my bit. Yeah. I'm moving on. It was a really hard time, I think, for a lot of people in those positions. Yeah. To have to, what do I do? Do I make this passport thing, or am I risking people's lives? Because that's how they were told. It's like you were risking people's lives if you let unvaccinated people in. And so these people who were the decision makers had a really hard decision that they had to make. You were on the other side of that, had a vaccine, had an adverse reaction, but still couldn't even go to class because you didn't do the other ones after that. Yeah. So tell us about this reaction. What was happening in your body? Yeah,
so I, when I got in, I had gotten it done, and I was the only person in the room, like, so there's like the reception kind of lady, and there were 3 booths and the 3 nurses, if that's what you call them. Yeah. And, I had it done, and then they're like, oh yeah, wait your 20 minutes in the waiting room before you leave. Yeah. And, so I was like, okay, got it done. I was sitting there, and then, like, my chest started feeling really heavy, and then my heart started like, I don't know, it just felt like it was struggling
Oh
to,
my goodness.
like something was happening to it. And like how I would describe it was kind of like someone went like this
Oh, wow.
and was like
Grabbing your
squeezing my
heart.
heart so that it couldn't like pump.
Wow.
Yeah, and then I had called over the lady that had administered it to me, and I had said like, "Oh, I'm feeling these things. Is this normal?" She's like, "Yeah, that's normal. Just wait your 20 minutes and then go home."
That's normal.
Yeah,
I
she
didn't
said,
experience
that's
that.
normal. And then so she went back to like her booth, and then the lady that was at the reception, she came up to me and she was like, "That's not normal. Go to the hospital right now." And so she let me leave early.
Wow.
And so yeah, I went to Whitehead Hospital. Yeah, I went and to the ED, and I was like, "Oh, I'm experiencing all these things. I just had my vaccine." And on my like health record, I have like it's noted that I've struggled with like anxiety and depression, and I've had like prescribed medication for it. And yeah, it was just really frustrating because it's like, "Oh, so I see you've taken lorazepam, and I see that you've struggled with anxiety. Like, I think you are just having a panic attack."
These are all historical things, though.
Yeah,
These
yeah.
are things in your past.
And I was like, "Oh no, like I know what a panic attack feels like. I've never felt this pain before." Yeah, and he's like, "Oh no, it's okay." So he prescribed me lorazepam, and sent me home.
Okay.
Yeah.
So lorazepam is like for if you're having a panic attack. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it can be. I think it's like a not a mood stabilizer, but like a calming. I don't know the medical terminology.
Relaxant.
For it, but yeah,
I don't even
something
know.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then he sent me off, and that was like from then that was kind of it. And it's funny because when we tell people like, "Oh yeah, we both," people are like, "Oh yeah, whatever." But Levi wasn't even with me that day, and we didn't even get it at the same time. Like he got his like almost a month after me.
So, and did he have the same kind of symptoms as well?
Same, but he didn't have it immediately like I did. His came on like in the next like 3 or so days. But
Okay.
his started, I think, with his legs. So he could feel it in his heart. But the most obvious thing, because he was so active. Like he's a runner, he's a football player. He could feel this like burning in his legs. Like his blood was on fire kind of thing.
Whoa.
Just like
Yeah.
yeah. And so those are things that like we both still get. Yeah, and so we were later diagnosed with, I have myocarditis and he had myocarditis and pericarditis,
Wow.
which were the two like most common adverse reactions. And so like I think it's the myocardium and the pericardium are two like linings or walls of the heart.
Okay.
It's basically just inflammation
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah. And the thing is, back then in the COVID times, to say that you had an adverse reaction was like, you're not allowed to say that. You know, it was almost like, because all vaccines can have adverse reactions, every single kind.
Yeah.
So
Which is a
why
common
is it
thing,
so scandalous to have an adverse reaction and just say the truth of what is happening to you?
Yeah.
I can say, I did not have an adverse reaction. Okay? So I'm not coming at, like, I feel like there's going to be two types of people listening, people who are pro-vax and people who are anti-vax and people who don't really care. So 3 types. Like I said, I had no adverse reaction, but you did.
Yeah.
And that is a real thing.
Yeah.
And it was so awful is because people who did have an adverse reaction at that time were like basically told they were lying. And I remember there being like people trying to speak out and say, look, I did have an adverse reaction. And then basically they're getting, cancelled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like, I think it was a really trying time in our faith as well, because where we thought that Christians would be our, I guess, place of belonging, like we were still pushed out. Like I wasn't allowed to go to church. And, even with college, like I was living on campus and I was allowed to go collect my mail from reception because that's classed as my property. And I was allowed to walk around, but I wasn't allowed in class. So I would walk past people.
Oh, man.
So I'm like there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think similarly for Levi as well. But it's just, it was just a really hard time for us in terms of, the faith aspect. Because it's like, oh well, like where do we belong? Are we
Yeah.
not part of God's people?
Are
How can
we
we
second-class
commune?
citizens now?
Yeah. And like how do we go commune with people? Because there are some Christians that are like, oh yeah, no, it's fine, just gather. Like together, it's fine. And then there are others that's like, oh yeah, gather in your smaller groups in homes. And yeah, and then obviously like a whole spectrum of beliefs around it.
It was a really hard time. Hard for the people who have to make those decisions, hard for the people who have to then deal with the consequences of those decisions. And I can just say, I'm so glad that that's over, because it was a bit crazy. And there was this feeling of division within our whole nation.
Yeah. And in some ways, like in November this year, that'll be 4 years that I've struggled with like these chronic illnesses.
You're still dealing with it. And that's the thing, like we're moving on and we're carrying on, but you still are dealing with the repercussions of that.
Yeah. So like I have come to be grateful for it because there are so many things that the Lord has brought forth through it. And like I'm a hardcore Calvinist, so for me everything happens
for a reason. Yeah.
And like the Lord is working in and through all things. And so like even with Taste and See, you know, we're not some big booming honey sales like business, but if we didn't have that, like, we would be struggling a lot more, because we're a one-income household now.
Yeah.
With my husband working full-time.
Yeah.
That like, there's so many things that I wouldn't now believe or have surrendered to, because I'd be too stubborn in my own health and ability. Because I wouldn't need God, because I have my strength, I have my health.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, that's it, like the Lord, he works in all things. And even these hard things, he's still working and he can bring it to good. Yeah, absolutely. What is it that you notice in your day-to-day life, your myocarditis, if I've said that right?
Yeah.
How does it affect you today?
The biggest thing is tiredness. Like I just get really fatigued easy, and I have like a very upbeat personality, and so I think that plus some adrenaline kind of just carries me through. And I am an extrovert, so I do get energy around others, which is hard because people are like, oh, but you don't look tired. But
They don't see you when you go home and crash on the bed. Yeah.
So like tiredness is the biggest thing. There are a lot of secondary issues that have come up from my heart not being able to pump like well, you know, like my muscles don't get enough oxygen, my organs don't. And like one of the biggest secondary things that happened from that was like my lungs I don't get enough oxygen, and they can't expand to what they used to. And so sometimes it's hard to breathe. We live in a 2-story house, and man, I hate the stairs.
Oh, no. Oh, man.
And like if I do too much, I get those same burning pains like, in my legs in particular. And
That your husband got, Levi.
Yeah.
Wow.
So those are the big things that I struggle with. Just like general weakness. Now, like my immune system, I can catch everything.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So is that where the honey kind of came in? And
part of it, like not necessarily that the honey has helped or healed us in what we've been going through, but I think more the principle of health shouldn't be this hard thing to pursue. My experience of the medical system hasn't been great, not because they aren't competent or anything, but just because of the way the cookie crumbled with this particular issue. And it's like honey is the superfood that the Lord has blessed us with, and it's not an accident that Levi has, like that's his family trade, that he's grown up harvesting this superfood. And also we're in New Zealand, like we have the best honey in the world, not even biased. I'll stand by that.
And especially from Taste and See.
It was just like there were some doctors we were going to where we had to go back once a month, and it was like $1,000 each.
Wow.
And it's just like, this is not sustainable. And so we wanted to be able to provide like a healthy alternative to what people eat every day. That's just a bit more, not necessarily accessible, but affordable. Yeah, in comparison to like the big brands that
Yeah.
you might sell at Chemist Warehouse or
Yeah. 'Cause
supermarket.
and not everyone might know that, but honey is a medicine.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Like, 'cause I know there's like
Yeah.
certain types that are better,
Yeah.
and how do you grade like what is medicinal honey and what's just for your toast?
Yeah. So particularly with Manuka honey is rich in antioxidants. So there's this thing called oxidative stress, which most people have. And it's when there are, what are they called? Free radicals, like an insane amount of free radicals, which are like unstable molecules.
Oh, okay.
And if you think it's like pinball, they're bouncing around and they're damaging your cells. That's like kind of their job. And
Within your body?
yeah, within your body.
Okay.
And so that damages overall like cell health and like your cell walls, and then, which means that toxins can kind of like get lodged in more.
Yeah.
But yeah, with antioxidants, like it's like a buzzword, heaps of people. So berries, citrus, spinach.
Yeah, I've heard of
help combat.
antioxidants, but I've just been like, I don't know what it means. You know, I'm like, antioxidant, it just sounds great. You know, anti the oxidants. You know, like, I don't know. But so basically, it's just supporting your cell health. Is that what it is?
Yeah. Oh no, it like kills the free radicals.
Okay. It kills the free radicals.
Yeah,
Okay, see, I was just thinking it was like helping, build things.
Yeah.
Actually, it's like an assassin. It's like targeting. the
Kind
bad
of,
things.
yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Oh,
and so, yeah, Manuka honey in particular is really good for that. So me and Levi, well, he eats our bush blend just like on toast, just by the spoon. But our, like a medicinal Manuka honey, it's good to just take by the spoon once a day.
Yeah.
Yeah, or even before sleep at nighttime.
Cool.
Yeah, but then Manuka is also like antibacterial, and so it's really good for itchy
Do you
bites,
put it on
cuts.
itchy bites?
Yeah, itchy bites. Oh
Really?
man, because I get attacked by mozzies in the summer.
So do I,
Yeah.
and they go big.
Yeah.
And, yeah, itchy bites. So I didn't even know that. So Manuka honey on itchy bites
Yeah.
is a thing.
Yeah,
Wow. Cool.
that's so good.
Yeah. What if you had a cut?
Yep, cut.
Because it's antibacterial.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Oh,
so,
that's so cool.
traditionally, like with the Maori people, obviously they would use the Manuka leaves before like honey was introduced to New Zealand.
Yeah.
Because it was one of the settlers. I think her name's Mary.
So there would have been bees though, right?
Yeah, I think there are New Zealand bees. I believe that they're like
They
a lot
burrow
smaller.
and they burrow into the ground.
I think so.
They don't have like big hives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they're smaller and they're, I think, darker. I think they're more like a black coat.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Whereas our honeybees, I don't know. You have to ask Levi. This is so bad. Goes on the podcast. I don't even know what my bees
Fact
are.
check. Fact check. Levi.
Yeah, pretty much just fact check everything that I say.
But we're assuming that they came over with the settlers, and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
that's when honey kind of first came to New Zealand.
Yeah, so it was a woman. She brought 2 hives
Wow.
over to New Zealand. I
Cool.
believe in the 1800s.
It would have been, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure it would have been, yeah. Okay, cool. And then that's how honey kind of started. But the Māori people were already using the Manuka leaves.
Yeah, like similar with kawakawa leaves. They would use it as like tea or tinctures and stuff. And they
Yes.
could like, is it?
Like a poultice, is
Yeah,
that the
that's
word?
the word. I
Where
was
you
like,
smush it up.
Yeah,
You
like that.
smush it up and then you put it on something that's...
Yeah, so like really similarly to how they would use the leaves. Yeah, the honey has the same.
Wow. Amazing. That's
Yeah.
so cool. And I know you brought some honey with you. For me, thank you. So kind. I don't even ask, and you're so generous. Thank you. But you did bring some. I did say, would you be able to bring some for our giveaway? So could you tell us what is in the box that you brought?
Yeah, so we currently only stock 3 grades of Manuka honey. So one is a bush blend, which is good for like your everyday, like put it in your teas, on toast and baking.
Cool.
And then there is an MGO 100 plus, which is equivalent to like a UMF 5 plus. I don't know if you've seen. Like,
I have seen those stickers on the honey in the shop.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you like 100 plus is not yet classed as medicinal, like legally, but it still has a lot of medicinal properties.
Nice.
So the thing with Manuka honey, you'll notice that it's darker, a lot darker than others. And even when you see your jars, you can see it gets darker with the 3 grade.
Darker the better?
Yeah. The darker, the more manuka is in it. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So that one we kind of recommend. You can cook with it. I cook with it.
Yeah.
With meat, but it's good for like face masks, or if you add it with like coffee and sugar, and it makes like a scrub.
Stop. I'm like,
Yeah, it's
my jaw
really
is
good.
dropping. I didn't even know you could do that with
Yeah.
honey. So honey and sugar scrub.
Yeah, like raw sugar, like the big granulated.
Yeah.
ones. Yeah, as like a
So
sugar scrub.
how do you do a mask though? Do you just put the honey on?
Yeah, you just put it on.
Wow.
Maybe a teaspoon around.
And you just wipe it off.
Yeah, just
Well, because your skin does look amazing, by the way.
Oh, thanks.
So if it's the honey, I'm going to try that.
Yeah, so that's the middle one, and then the darkest one is our 270 plus, which is our medicinal grade.
Okay.
And in like the manuka world, it's like the starting level of medicinal grade. But yeah, that one's good for taking by the spoon, putting it on wounds and stuff.
Okay, so the darker one is more medicinal. The middle tone one is, you can use that for a scrub or a face mask, but could you still like use it for just cooking or whatever?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, all of them you probably could.
Not the 270. Yeah, heat kills the medicinal properties.
True.
So that's why we did 3 different ones so that you could have, like, you use it for different things.
So if you put it in like a hot drink, does that take away some of the medicinal properties?
Yeah, of the 270.
Of the 270. Okay, guys, don't put it with your lemon
Yeah.
in a hot drink. Just have a spoonful of the medicinal one.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
great. Because, I've probably been like killing all my medicinal properties of my honey that I've had. Because I'll have honey and lemon if I'm like,
Yeah.
okay,
It'll still have like
something, but
it's
just not as much.
Yeah. So if it's heated above 70 degrees, I believe,
Okay,
then it pretty much kills the antioxidants in
the
it.
stuff that you want.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Oh, thank you so much for bringing that. That's going to be part of giveaway for everyone who's listening. So make sure you leave a comment on this episode. But we're getting close to wrapping up. I have 2 kind of more questions that I wanted to ask you though. The first one is, what advice would you have for other Christians in business on the subject of being open about your faith? I mean, and even please feel free to say like some of the pros and cons that you've experienced in doing that.
Yeah. Well, it was a bit hard at the beginning because I was very much like, we're just going to go all out Christian. And Levi was a bit more apprehensive about it, and which makes sense because he has grown up in the business world. Like he knows how a business runs. I don't. He knows about marketing and audience, and I don't. I'm just like, I like this, let's share it.
Jesus everything.
Yeah, pretty much. And so, it was a bit rough in the beginning, trying to decide. But yeah, I would say that the biggest thing for us is just that like Jesus had no shame dying on the cross for me. So why should I feel ashamed sharing my love for him with others through this thing? And like the only reason I am alive is because of Jesus. And the only reason that we have been sustained financially through this honey is because of Jesus. The only reason we have bees is because of Jesus. And I think it's in like 2 Corinthians, I'm going to guess 4 or 5, where Paul talks about like the ministry of reconciliation, and he calls us like ambassadors for Christ. And it's like, in my mind, I'm just like, if I would share my faith in every other aspect, why would I not share it with my business? Like the thing that the Lord would use to sustain our family financially and keep us afloat. And since like in my sickness, I've had to step away from a lot of my ministry positions and step away from helping a lot of people because, if I say yes to them, I'm saying no to me. And it's like I do need my own help. And and so like I just wanted Taste and See to kind of be like a table to invite people to. It's like I don't have much anymore because the Lord has stripped it back, but I have honey. And I have my mind, I have my experience, I have my love for the Lord, and I want to share that with other people. And we have had some negative comments from Christians and non-Christians that's like, but there's so many customers that you'll lose because you're so explicitly Christian. And I'm like, yeah, but there's so many customers that we would gain just because we are explicitly Christian. And like, yes, obviously it is about the money. Like, we do need to be sustained financially. But like, we, love honey. To think that everyone should have it as part of their diet because health is such a good thing. But also, like, we have tasted and seen of the Lord's goodness, and we would just love for others to have the same as us.
That is beautiful. Yeah. Honestly, Monica, I mean, I couldn't have said that better. I mean, that's just beautiful. I just love your heart. Yeah, I just love your heart for the Lord. And you're so right. Like, everything that we have comes from God our Father. You didn't make the honey. You didn't make the bees that make the honey.
Yeah, I don't.
We
try to keep them alive. But
and, and it actually brings me back to that song. It's your breath in our lungs, Jesus. So we pour out our praise. And you're doing that so beautifully through Taste and See. Thank you for being such a great ambassador for Christ through your business. You're right, it might be hard, but that's something that you guys are willing to do, I guess. Yeah. And I mean, yeah, thank God for you, and thank God for your boldness. I love it. One last question, and that is, how are you living your faith outside of Sunday, Monica?
Yeah, I was confronted with this big, giant wall of, I don't know. When I came to that last question, I was like, oh, no. And I think one of them is loving my husband. So I'm in, like, a lot of circles where I brush shoulders with people in high places who have very important jobs. And I haven't formally worked in employment for many years now. And so when people ask, oh, what do you do? I look after my husband and I keep bees when I can. And so I think the biggest way that I live out my faith is trying to love my husband and look after him and learn to submit to him, because that's not something that comes naturally to me. I'm a very controlling, as I had said before, but I'm a very strong person, and my personality can be very commanding. And so a way that I've been able to live my faith is through my sickness and learning to surrender to the Lord. Like, I am able to learn to love, to respect and submit to my husband in the way that God has designed. And in a way that sees him encouraged and bolstered, and in a way that encourages him to love me. And it's like this wonderful cycle.
A beautiful cycle. It is. Yeah. And I just think for those listening who you hear, Monica saying, learning to submit to my husband. And that might be a challenging thing for some people listening. Like, what are you talking about? My husband doesn't know. I know better, know? And look, sometimes you might know better.
Yeah.
But I have seen the fruit in my own life of doing that same thing, because I also think I know best. And I also think that, if I could just take charge of this situation, that it would be great, and just I have my own things. But the Lord, again, just like you say, the Lord has been growing me in that too. And I've seen the benefit of letting my husband lead, where I would love to lead. I'm like, okay, Lord. So that might be something that's challenging for you to hear. But look, it's a journey, and we're not saying go out there and submit to your husband. We're saying go out there, pray about it, and see what the Lord says. See what his word also reveals to you, and start small if that's something that you feel like the Lord is calling you to pursue. But honestly, the benefit is really good. Okay, one thing. Because if your husband is leading and then he makes a bad choice, it wasn't you leading making the bad choice.
Yeah.
If that encourages you, if that blesses you.
That is so real. I could have done it and I wouldn't have made that mistake. It's like, yeah, you probably would have.
Probably would have, yeah. But that's it. It's not on your shoulders. It's on his, and that's where the Lord's put it. So, yeah. Anyway, thank you so much, Monica. This has been so fun. And, yeah, I just pray for as I prayed before we started, I just pray that the Lord blesses you, your husband, and your business. I think it's wonderful. So thank you. Thanks everyone for listening to this episode of the Outside of Sunday podcast, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks again for listening to this episode of the Outside of Sunday podcast. We have some exciting news. We're starting a monthly giveaway for our Outsider community. And all you have to do is let us know your favorite moment from this episode. Any thoughts that you had, a Bible verse that might have come to mind, a personal experience that you can relate to from this episode. And you will automatically go in the draw for this monthly giveaway. See, we want you to be a part of this podcast too. Please let us know your thoughts and insights in the comments. And you never know, your comment could be included in a future episode of this podcast or you could be our monthly winner. Thank you so much for your support of this ministry, and don't forget to let somebody you know about this podcast. Outside of Sunday is part of the Outsider Network and is made with the help of Inspirational Media.